So now I'm going to show you how to animate an image like this in After Effects. So if you go down here, you'll see like there's going to be lots of layers. And if you click on one of the layers, for instance, this is my bear PNG, there's something called transform. You want to click on this arrow and you'll notice that you have anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. This is like the part where you can animate. It's like the core of everything. So right now there are no keyframes, but let's say I want this bear to go from left to right. First, I'm going to start where I want the bear to start. But it's not going to do anything unless you put a keyframe. So I'm going to bring this bear over here, and obviously I am playing around with the position of the bear. So I'm going to click on this little stopwatch, and you'll notice now that I created this keyframe. I'm going to bring this over maybe around 5 seconds, and then if you bring the bear over to the other side, you'll notice that I now have this little line that's telling me that this bear is going from the left to the right, and now it created another keyframe. So if I press spacebar, it's going to render, and now my bear is going from left to right. So if I bring this over, it will go faster. So it really depends on the positioning of each keyframe. But I'm going to undo everything and show you another way to do it. So let's say I want to start in this position. You can also come over here and go right and left to animate as well. So here I go. I'm going to mess around with the position. And if I do it this way, it'll give me a straight line for that. So that's pretty much how you animate. So you can play around with the scale as well. So let's say I want to mess around with the scale. I want it to get larger as it passes. I can bring this up like this. So now if I press play, it'll get bigger. You can mess around also with the rotation. So rotation as in rotating your image. You can also play around with the opacity. So if you want to start off with your bear, but make it gradually disappear, you can do that as well. Another really cool thing that you guys can use in your After Effects is something called a puppet pin tool. It's right up here. It looks like a little pin. And we're going to play around with the puppet position pin tool. So let's say I want my bear ears to kind of move around. I'm going to put little pins on the ears. And you'll notice now that there is a puppet under the effects. To animate these little things, you'll notice that there's something called Mesh 1. We have to open this up and open that up, deform. There's puppet pin 1 and there's puppet pin 2. There's 2 pins on my canvas. I'm going to play around with this pin first, and it highlights it for me. So puppet pin 1. And if you click on the arrows, you'll notice it already created a keyframe for me. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And to zoom in your keyframes, you just click and drag. So I'm going to bring this over a little bit. And around the 1 second mark, I'm just going to move this a little bit over like this. And then I'm going to move it back. And then move it over. So this is how you basically start animating. So if I press play, my ears are moving. It's really slow. So if you want to like drag your keyframes, you can do that. You can drag your keyframes one by one like this, or you can highlight your keyframes and then bring it in all together as one. So now if I press play, it's a little bit faster. So I'm going to do that with my puppet pin 2. And you'll notice when you do this, the whole body moves. And that's because if you click on mesh and if you click on show, it will show the mesh of your image. What mesh means is it's like a whole body. It's not like you can only just move part of it. Like, since this is connected to the body and, everything is connected together, it's going to affect one another. If you don't want it to move as a whole, you can always separate the body parts into different layers. So that's how you use the transform tool along with the puppet tool.